Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. We are with Jeffrey and Clayton, the co-founders of FLFE. This is Focused Life Force Energy, Frequencies of Higher Consciousness. And it is a way of New Earth. As we know, New Earth is a frequency. And this service that we're going to talk about today absolutely helps us achieve that in a sovereign, bolstered, powerful, potent way. Hello, Jeffrey, and hello, Clayton. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
Nice to meet you, Lauren.
You founded this in 2008. This is a fascinating story. You've come a long way since then, and you are really on a mission. Can you share, each of you, how it is that you came to create this business, why it is that you created it, and your mission for it?
Yeah, we created the business after discovering this technology, this consciousness technology, and we were doing service work. We were looking to support the planet, people on the planet to rise in consciousness. Really, our focus is consciousness and the rise in consciousness. Supporting 2012, during that time, we were doing a lot of service work. Once we discovered that with this technology that we could support areas of the planet to rise and be more supportive for the life there in those areas. And when we were done in 2012, we kind of got the message and that the idea that we could then now offer this service and offer people a chance to do their own service work with it, to raise the level of consciousness of their property. And we give away a free subscription with every subscription. They could gift that anywhere in the world. We can talk about that more later. We call that a pay it forward. So that was really the start of the business, why we decided to do it. We felt we could do more good in distributing the access to the technology that way.
Yeah, it's a good point, Jeff. When you're looking at life through the lens, or trying to look at life through the lens of what is in the highest and best interest of all creation, at least as that relates to FLFE, to start a business gives you the possibility of doing more service work or doing more good work with the technology than we could with our own resources, unless we became substantially wealthy at some point where we could just give it all away. But to have, 30 people on the team and be in 61 plus countries, and to have that grow, the personal resources that would take were beyond what we had. And so there is a point sometimes when business as a spiritual path is really the way forward, because it helps to economize it in such a way that you can continue and you can grow and you can do more good. So that was our choice at the time. It was very deliberate. And you did mention, Lauren, that we started playing with the technology back in 2008, and that's when we kind of met the inventor together. I'd known him for about a year. I told Jeff about him, and we met him together, and that was a pretty extraordinary experience. And that was the beginning of kind of tinkering, as we call it. And I was heavy into the research with him because I had a personal health issue that he was helping me with, and the technology was helping me with. So yeah, there's it's kind of a long story how these things emerge, right? You meet and then you talk and you meet different people and things evolve. Yeah.
Our stated mission is supporting the evolution of consciousness. In an economized society. So it's part of, how do we all rise? How do we become more free, more joyous in our lives, and still work, still do what we need to do in this current time to earn a living and pay rent and everything else we need to do. And so that's sort of, you could develop a service that was so, moved so quickly. I mean, our current subscribers rise on average 25 points in 90 days. In consciousness, that's on the Hawkins Map, and we can talk more about that scale. But you could design something that went much faster, but you wouldn't be able to work maybe for some period of time, like the monks going into a cave and living in a cave for years to rise in consciousness. We don't have that luxury, most of us.
Yeah, we still got to be here. And so what I love is that you guys are raising consciousness on a whole level. And we'll talk about the specifics on how it works. But it's really one household at a time, or a cell phone at a time. And let's have everyone experience this. So for this session, you are going to turn on a boost for those listening. And in my own experience with FLFE, it's palpable. Absolutely. Let's turn that on and see if people experience anything. And then we're going to talk about the Hawkins Map.
Here we go. So we're adding this boost now, which is effective for everyone listening, even listening to a recorded version later.
So let us know how you feel. So as we are talking about these frequencies of higher consciousness, I know some are wondering exactly what's going on. This is like the power of prayer, positive thoughts, but it's much more than that. It's prana or chi.
Yes. The technology creates a high consciousness field around a unique identifier, which could be an address anywhere on the planet. Although some countries, their address systems are difficult. And there's even the odd case that may have happened with you, Lauren, where a stream changes location, or a clerk in a township makes a mistake and the postal codes are mixed up, or there's an address discrepancy between what's on the legal registered document, which the technology accesses, or what we might believe is our postal code. So we have a unique identifier, and the technology creates a high consciousness field around that unique identifier. So if it's an object, it could be a picture of the object or a cell phone. If it's your home or business or nonprofit, it's the property that it's on. And it's very much like human prayer, Lauren. It's when you think about somebody with a loving intent, or even with a negative intent, you create a field of energy around that person, and that happens through quantum association. So it's just another way to remind us that humans are extraordinarily powerful, and it's good for us to pay attention to our thoughts, because thoughts are things in a way. Yeah.
So just to go further, there's no device in the home itself. The devices are centralized. It is a system, the FLFE system, and we've continued to build that system and create redundancies. And as Clayton said, this quantum association occurs just with unique identifier. And we discovered along the way a way to take the system. There's a highly energetic space within this device that creates this quantum field, to connect that to a database, so that when someone goes on a free trial or becomes a subscriber, or even turns on the boost, like you were talking about, we can talk more about that later, that it occurs instantly or almost instantly. So that was a breakthrough for us. Initially, we were taking pieces of paper and putting them into the field, the part of the machine, and having to take it back out when someone's unsubscribed. That was not sustainable for 61 countries and thousands of people. So the database was the breakthrough that can.
All right. Very, very fascinating. I want to encourage everyone listening to sign up for the free trial, a 15-day free trial. We're experiencing it right now. There's a lightness, there's a happiness, there's a joy. When we see the results of systems like this, environments like this will affect everything. If it's affecting the fields of consciousness, it's the way that people are creating. Would we say that higher consciousness is like an open heart? So that is really cultivating more of a heart space, more of a heart consciousness.
Yes, well, higher consciousness fields are associated with a more heart-centered life. Absolutely. People move in typically to a more loving state, which is classically more heart-centered. There's typically fewer negative thoughts. I mean, if you've ever been to a pilgrimage site, many people associate FLFE with a type of environment that they'll find in a pilgrimage site. So more peace, fewer distracting thoughts, more self-compassion, compassion for others. You spend a lot less time managing the monkey, as we call it.
Yeah, and we do hear from customers quite often in testimonials, and there's a testimonial page on the website. I highly recommend check it out. And we hear about family changes in family related to, you could say, a heart change, where there's just more play, more sort of deeper conversational, deeper connection. Particularly children and parents really have noticed. The parents notice, a change in what happens. And oftentimes, someone will put the service on and they won't tell everyone, that the service is on, so they get to really see a change in behavior to, as you're saying, possibly more heart-centered. And the other amazing miracle that occurs is teenagers tend to start cleaning their rooms. That there's this feeling in a high consciousness field of wanting to take care of the space, take care of the place, to make it better. There's just this feeling. People, it's great. Like if there's contractors there, if you're renovating, to have the FLFE service on, and we don't have any evidence for this, but could be they do a better job. They feel good about the place, and but certainly we've seen the teenager effect.
I love that teenager effect. Absolutely. My son just turned 20 and he loves to cook, and he'll come over and just cook, and we just all just hang out, and it's really good. And communication lines are open. I absolutely love that. This really is a service. It can go to a property. We'll talk about this very quickly, but it also goes to a mobile phone. And what is really interesting with the concern about 5G, this is a solution for 5G.
Yeah, so we've done research on the influence that the FLFE service has, and we'll go into the details of it in just a minute. But the way that we use to measure the harmonizing effect of FLFE is a device called a gas discharge visualization camera. And so when you're dealing with subtle energy fields, you need a certain type of technology to do that. And we use the same practitioner who worked with Joe Dispenza in his workshops, measuring the influence of meditative states and different influences that were occurring in the workshop. That was Melissa Waterman was the practitioner. And we were able to notice, and that's on our website as well. We were able to notice a difference in the level of chaos in an FLFE environment, which was significantly reduced. And we first came across the detrimental effects of, we call them consciousness lowering EMFs, when we were measuring the property. So we guarantee that the property will be at 560 or higher 98% of the time on the Hawkins Map. We'll talk about the Hawkins Map in, I guess, a little while. And so we have to check that a couple times a week. And so we check at least once a week, all the properties, and we check the new properties just about every day. Probably 99.8% of the days in the last year. And we found that some of the properties were lowering in consciousness. And when we called the clients, they would say that, well, they just put a smart meter in my home, or there's a cell phone tower went up across the street, or I just got a new router. And we noticed that actually lowered the level of consciousness of the property. So we did a lot of research on the subject, and we found that there was only one substance that would help harmonize it. So you can deflect EMFs, you can dissipate it, you can try to redirect it. But ideally, you want to harmonize it. So harmonizing it is taking that energy, which is consciousness lowering, and making it consciousness raising. So turning it into a positive influence. And the only substance we found to do that was shungite. So we created the energetic essence of shungite in the FLFE environment. And maybe Jeff can talk about how far that goes out in the cell phone. It goes out quite a ways, because you need that influence you need a big enough bubble to stop, to give yourself time to harmonize the incoming frequencies from, EMF waves from satellites and Wi-Fi and cell towers and stuff.
Yeah, the first breakthrough we had, Lauren, was discovering that if you raise the level of consciousness of an object like a phone that's emitting EMFs, so you've got all these devices in our homes, and it's part of our modern life, and there's a lot of benefits from it. And what the FLFE service does first is, within a certain zone, we discovered if you raise the level of consciousness of, say, a Wi-Fi device, that it's now vibrating at a higher level. And so those antennas that are broadcasting the EMF signal are vibrating at this now higher level. And it turned out that, it's like 580 to 600 covers most routers, that when the router is now vibrating at that level, that the EMFs that are going out are harmonized, and they become consciousness raising, the way we look at it, or positive for the environment. And people notice the change in, like, reduced anxiety, better sleep. I feel it in my muscles, like when I turn off the EMF mitigation. So it's included in all the services that we provide. But you can turn it on and off with your control panel, which is part of the free trial as well as the subscription. And when I turn the EMF mitigation off, I just feel my shoulders kind of come up. I just feel tense, and I have trouble taking a deep breath. And when I turn it back on, it feels like I can just breathe again. So we've done surveys, and as Clayton said, the GTV camera, and we're about to launch a EMF sensitives research project that's a double-blind experiment that will show, the effects. So, so as I was saying, the objects themselves, we ask those to rise in consciousness in the local environment. And then you have things coming in from satellite and from pole-mounted devices and towers and neighbors' Wi-Fi's and everything else. So the shungite is in the environment, and for the phone, for example, the shungite's kind of moving up the incoming waves until they're harmonized. As part of the way that it works, so that things coming in are harmonized. So it's a relatively smaller bubble around a phone, but the entire property. So you can go in the free trial, you can do your home or you could do a phone. So the phone kind of gives you this 5-6 foot bubble of EMF mitigation, but the home goes all the way to the boundary, to the border, whether it's an apartment, the boundary of the apartment, or if it's an address that includes, like a home, would go to the legal address boundaries.
The property line.
Property line, right. Now the work has to start before the incoming EMFs get there, in order for them to be harmonized when they actually reach the property.
Fascinating. So let's talk about the Hawkins Map.
Yeah, so the Hawkins Map is a map created by Dr. David Hawkins, who is a psychotherapist, and he made a discovery that kinesiology is a non-local phenomena, which is a pretty big discovery. So what a non-local phenomena means is that kinesiology was used primarily for supplements when it started being recognized as an accurate diagnostic tool. So if I was with you at your office, Lauren, you would hold a bottle of supplements in front of your solar plexus. Typically, you'd hold out your arm, and we would, do a polarity check and a few things. And then we would test how strong your body was in the presence of those supplements. So that would indicate that, it would create a relationship between the level of appropriateness of the supplement as a food and the strength in your body, because food makes the body go stronger, right? Or healthy food makes the body go stronger. And what David Hawkins realized is that it's a non-local phenomena. So I should be able to, what that means is I could have a supplement here and I could test if it was good for you, and we're thousands of miles apart. So he found that, I guess, I don't know what exact words he would use, but he found that fascinating, and he did an extensive amount of research on it, published a book called Power versus Force, which was his first book. He published 9, I think, when he was alive, and there's been 2 that I know of, Successes for You and the Book of Slides, since he's passed. He passed over a few years ago. But Power versus Force is the best-selling, New York Times best-selling book. And on page 68 in that book is the map of consciousness. So it's a logarithmic map. It goes from a 1 to infinity. The human realm is 1 to 1,000. And then you get up into the kind of the angelic realms. God or divinity calibrates at infinity. So it's an unlimited power. So a logarithmic scale means that 101 is 10 times power than 100. 102 is 10 times power than 10 times more powerful than 101. On the Hawkins map, 200 is integrity. So below that are the negative emotions such as pride, anger, shame. And then above 200, you get into 250 is neutrality, 300 is willingness, 400 is reason, 500 is love, 540 to 560 is kind of unconditional love, 600 is peace, 700 is the beginning of enlightenment. There's a lot we could say about the Hawkins map. We could talk about that for about a week. But the one thing that's interesting is in the back of Power versus Force, I think it's page 270, but I'm not sure. I have the first edition. I'm just reading the second edition, and second edition's a bit longer. But there is a consciousness compensation chart in the back of the book, Lauren, and you mentioned earlier that well, you inferred earlier that we should talk about that. So one person at 500 on the Hawkins map of consciousness counterbalances for 750,000 people below 200. So David Hawkins does talk about, if you really want to make a difference in the world, all you have to do is become a loving person. And you don't have to start a great business or be a great scientist or be a great producer or be a celebrity or be an influencer, or you can just be a loving person and you will help the planet. It's pretty simple. So I really like that about spiritual teachers who make things simple. And
put a little love in your heart. You guys are making the world a better place. We love the technology, the harmonization of the 5G or the Wi-Fi. Would people have to turn off the Wi-Fi at night then? Would you still recommend that? Or because this is a harmonization with the frequencies, we're good, right? We're elevating the consciousness of the frequencies around us.
Well, we always recommend people test things,
Muscle, yes.
because our bodies, even if we're not muscle testing specifically, our bodies can be very sensitive. And some people are more sensitive to EMFs than others. In fact, it's becoming like the new gluten for some people, where, they can, even a little bit is difficult for them. So, in terms of, I don't turn my Wi-Fi off at night like I used to. In fact, I have my phone as close to me as I can get it, because I know the bubbles around the phone and the EMF mitigation and the FLFE field is activated around it. So
you could literally sleep with your cell phone next to you.
Yeah, the good thing is you can test this yourself. So, we have a control panel that you can access from the free trial. You'll get an email, the first email, and also as a subscriber, where you can log on and you can turn on and off the service. You can turn on and off the EMF mitigation, as we said. So, you could try the full service on, everything's on FLFE, with your router on, with your router off, and see how it feels to you. We have customers who send us pictures of their dog sleeping on the router, when before they wouldn't go near the router. And as soon as FLFE went on, the dog's like now sleeping on the router. So, dogs have their own sensitivities and their own ability to tell what's good for them and not good for them. But we really, one of the points of FLFE is that you are an autonomous, powerful person, and you can use the control panel to do your own consciousness testing. There's an actual slider or consciousness controller. You can turn up or down the level of support, the consciousness level of support. There's a boost that gives you 600 on Hawkins Map for half an hour for a property. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Clayton?
Well, the phone actually has a 300-foot bubble of a consciousness field around it. And it starts off, the phone now, I think, is 590. We turned it up a little bit. And, there's a 4-foot bubble, and then there's a, kind of a 10-foot bubble. And the bubble goes all the way to 300 feet. And so when you're walking around, all those people who are within 300 feet are getting a type of blessing because of that field. So a lot of us notice that when we go into, restaurants or coffee shops or bookstores, whatever we're going into these days, it's just people seem to be a little more uplifted than usual. And you kind of have this bubble of goodwill and happiness around you that, I'm not saying all the people are in a good mood in the bubble, but it does help. So, and actually on your home, we've noticed that the average home went up 4 points in consciousness after we harmonized the EMFs. So if you turn off your router, you'll actually turn down the level of consciousness of your home a little bit, just because any EMF emitting device now becomes a positive influence. So when we were playing with this, when we were experimenting with it, I would go around and touch the appliances in my home before we had the EMF harmonization on. And then we would turn it on. I'd go around and touch the appliances, and just by holding like a smart meter, if you just put your hands on it and hold it and just listen to your body and see if it moves away from it or moves towards it. You can do it with your refrigerator. You can do that with anything. And so that's one of the ways that we experimented with the EMF harmonization program. And so literally everything that emanates an electrical signal in the home now becomes an energetic support.
All right. That is really very interesting. So you said you could put it up to 590 or 600 and we can feel what goes on. I would like to share a quick testimonial. Between my husband and I, we are taking on a project where we really have to work as a team. And we were identifying the various roles. You could say good cop, bad cop, right? And the reason I share this story is that before I had turned on the FLFE, it was really strifeful. We would kind of disagree a little bit. But since we've had FLFE on, the communication has improved. It was just a higher perspective of cooperation and getting things done and truly working as a team. And that is palpable in my life. So I've got my FLE up all the way and I don't turn it off. I'm going to practice and experiment with that and do my own testing. But what we have noticed, both my husband and I, is we are thirstier. So we're drinking more water. Why is that you need more hydration with a rise in frequency? What's going on?
The FLFE service, when it comes on currently, it's at 560 and you can take it up to 570. And then, as you mentioned, there's a boost that takes it to 600 for a period of time. And these levels of consciousness, they're in the unconditional love range. So that does support the interactions like you were talking about, to be loving and for us to kind of come back to that loving state. And it's more energy available for the body. So chi and prana are both kind of terms for energy that have been in Eastern philosophies and chi and Chinese medicine. That we see there's more prana or chi available in the environment. So the body is naturally pulling energy from the environment all the time. And we believe that's how it works. In Chinese medicine, the same. And you receive some of that energy from the food, but much of it is coming from the environment. So, like Ayurvedic medicine, that much of what they're doing there is trying to build prana, like through breathing exercises, way that you're living, meditations, to increase the prana in your body. And with the FLFE field, it's a higher level of consciousness. We tend to call it consciousness, not so much as a frequency. So you're activating this higher level of consciousness. There's, exponentially more prana or energy available. So the body starts to take it in and find, the innate intelligence, our own intelligence of our system is taking that energy and doing what it needs to do. It might be repairs that need to happen that haven't had the energy to occur yet. And so when that body is now taking that energy and starting to do repairs, do work, do improvements to the system, it takes water. There might require water for the biochemical processes, and then you need more water to carry away the byproducts, or the release toxins or whatever that's moving out of the body. So hydration really supports us all the time. I mean, good hydration is always important, but in a high consciousness field, it's even more important because our bodies are really using that energy to do good things and for us, and they need water to do it.
All right, beautiful. So I know there's a question about health then. If we are in frequencies of higher consciousness, can this help the body repair itself? into a state of optimal well-being.
We're careful not to make health claims.
Right, for
and
obvious
yeah, for
reasons.
obvious reasons. And we have many testimonials about improved health. And one of the things that many people notice is that their cut flowers last much longer in an FLFE environment, or their houseplants thrive. And as Jeff said, it's the increased prana or chi. And if you think about pilgrimage sites around the world that are known for having people have spontaneous healings, that's a high consciousness field. And in that particular location, the prayers that people have been doing there for perhaps thousands of years are typically focused on a certain theme. So in some temples, for example, there'd be the theme of abundance, where you would go there and, in some cultures you'd worship a deity of abundance, or you would go for fertility, or you would go for health. And because thoughts are things, if you have, millions of people over thousands of years praying in that environment, the rocks and the soil and the crystals in the environment, they hold energy, right? Just like in our homes, when you put FLFE on your home, it's in your drywall, and it's in your foundation, it's in the rocks in your yard if you have one, it's in all the objects in the environment. So they all start resonating at that unconditional love space. And that provides the environment for increased health. Many people are saying they look younger. They certainly feel more vital. And we have something, Lauren, we haven't talked much about, and we call them request to divinity, or programs. And in this high consciousness field that Jeff has talked about with our FLFE system, we make these requests to divinity. And a really big one is on relationships between people in the environment. We make a request that the sacred masculine respects the sacred feminine respects the sacred masculine, that we're free of some of the negative programming around the roles that we've traditionally played, or roles that we're stuck in as a family. So it helps people become more free of some of the unconscious thought forms that we all buy into in our society. I mean, we all experience those old habits that just don't serve us. And so we have these requests for communication, respect from the parents to the child to the parents, male to the female to the male, brother to sister. I mean, everything you can imagine. We spend weeks and weeks, we do a program. We typically spend weeks and weeks imagining all the possibilities that could happen. And then when we're writing those programs, we write out the context of what we're trying to achieve. And then we write out all the ways that we're trying to achieve it. And then we measure the level of consciousness, or the level of truth of those requests to divinity. And we get them at a very high level of truth. And then we put them into the service. And we're always finding ways to increase the quality of the environment as well. So that's why so many people find they just get along better with each other. Their pets are more relaxed. The children get along with the parents. They're more willing to take on responsibilities without complaining, and more gets done with less effort and grief. Those are all the things that a high consciousness field does.
So these requests of divinity, again, are they're prayers, you could say. And if you prayed for your liver 24/7, that you were for your liver to be optimally functioning, optimally structured, clear of deposits. So we have a liver, kidney, gallbladder program that's on the service, because at one point we looked at, all right, we're supporting the evolution of consciousness. What are the restraints? And it's something we continually come back to. And the functioning of your liver and kidneys is a restraint to rising in consciousness. And it seems odd, but if you think about rising in consciousness and evolving as a human being, It's a whole body, whole energetic system process. So there may be physical rebuilding that's happening, in the nervous system and the brain and the different parts of the body. And so that requires your liver and kidney to be filtering out those byproducts of your physical evolution. And if you have deposits and say your liver's functioning at 40%, that the body does not kick into the same healing level. So these are like 20, like if you hired a group of monks and asked them to pray for your liver 24/7, that's what the similarity is to this program. And we talk about these different programs. It's nothing for anyone to do. Like if you come on the free trial or become a subscriber, they're all included. They're all part of the service. And we've defaulted to adding more and more value to the service. It's $35 a month, which we believe is very reasonable and affordable. But all of these things are included. So we have liver, kidney, gallbladder. We have brain support, which we did a study with IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences in Petaluma, California. And they wired up the subjects in their discovery lab. And the lab assistant was able to turn on and off FLFE in that space. And they looked at the change in the brain patterns and in the functioning. They were giving them cognitive tests, and what they saw was an increase in alpha waves, pretty much across the board on all the electrodes, which is kind of you look for that as you move into meditative states. And there was an increase in the cognitive functioning in certain tests that they gave. So this brain support, if you think about qi in Chinese medicine moving through the body, and it's sort of supporting all the organs and all the parts of the body to be healthy. So this prayer or request to divinity that's in the field just asks for additional qi to go to parts of the brain that need it. And the innate intelligence, does the rest. And that support is there for us to use. And it doesn't cross any, free will boundaries. It's just support.
You can put this on in your house. Do you advise that you tell everybody in the house that it's going on?
Yeah, we do request or require that somebody in the house knows the service is on so that they can encourage people to hydrate, because hydration is an important aspect of receiving the full benefit of the service. Mm-hmm. We have some parameters in the way the service works called, so you have level of conscious, which is kind of your being, and we have level of functioning, which is your doing. So if somebody's functioning drops because their evolution is happening at such a rapid pace, they're having a hard time adjusting, then it's like there's like a dimmer switch on the service, and it will kind of go down, it'll turn down a little bit so that person can stay in an optimal functioning state between 80% of what they were at on the average over the last year. So we do require at least one person in the environment knows, and if one person does and they're just encouraging people to drink water, then it's a way for you to be a consciousness researcher. And we have lots of people that have done that because they want to know for themselves. And then they find experiences like yours, Lauren, where people are getting along different, or the pets are much calmer, or on the other side, they have way more friends coming over and eating all the groceries, and hanging out because they love to be in the FLFE environment. Like your son likes to cook, right? It's like, well, sometimes people, they just come over and they want to hang out. And so all of a sudden your place becomes the place where people come and hang out. Yeah.
We're turning our homes and abodes into sacred sites, really, with this. And that's just beautiful. I thank you guys for the incredible work that you do to get this out. All right. I wanted to have you share a little bit about the 15-day free trial. This is it. You can get the free trial for your phone or for your home?
So yeah, so you can choose either one, and you can easily, through your control panel, as we said, once you sign up, literally your phone or your home will be on the service within seconds. Once you enter your information,
Yeah.
and we should really make clear there's no credit card for the free trial. So there's no credit. We don't ask for a credit card, so you can't accidentally be
Oops.
billed, at the end of the period. We felt very strongly from the beginning that the free trial would be a gift, and there's no strings attached, and you would just you try it, and bless people with that free trial period. So once you sign up, I can see down at the bottom you've got a free trial for everywhere. That's the phone, and then for property, that's the home, and that will get you on the service right away. And the first email, as we said, will give you information and give you a control panel.
It really is remarkable when you look at all of these. So, do you know why there's a difference of, maybe you get asked why 575 level of consciousness for the phone versus 560 for the home? Is there a purpose for that?
Yes. Well, what happens in a home environment is that there's a program we call the removal template, and it deals with the negative energetic or any negative energetic history in the land. So if something happened 100 years before you moved on to your home property, Lauren, or 1,000 years before, and there was a war there, or there was a conflict, some people find that energy is still in the land. And unless you make a conscious effort to clear it and know the specific techniques to address that particular issue, then it stays on the land. And it'll diminish over time typically. Another thing that happens is that there are geopathic stress zones on properties, and we compensate for hundreds of those. Recently, we had some subscribers in Florida, and we test the properties once a week. So if you have a subscriber like in a coastal area, when the tide's coming in through the canals in Florida, for example, you have the construction materials that are used in the concrete retaining walls. And once the rebar gets exposed, when you have tides coming in and out against metal and certain EMFs, you get a certain type of geopathic stress. And so we had to find a way to compensate for that. And so once we figured out if the property is lowering for part of the day, and we can determine what that is, we noticed it worked with the tides. And so that's one of hundreds of examples of us finding a geopathic stress influence. We correct it with the FLFE programs of request to divinity. And then that influence, any property in the world, automatically it goes on to that property if that condition happens. So underground streams, underground water, pipes, water going through pipes and crossing with electrical wires. There's so many possibilities for those, and some of them are really obscure. We had one where there was a bridge, it was going across a river, and the home went on in the summertime, and then the home was just downstream from the bridge, and the service went on in the summer, and in the fall the property started dropping, and we found out it was because there was a university on the other side of the bridge, and all the traffic from all the cars as it was going across the river, and the chi was coming down the river and hitting the bridge with all the traffic. It started to create disrupted energy below the river on the one side of the bank. And so there's just all these anomalies that over time we figure out. And so we're always looking to create more value. It's kind of fun to try to help,
So that then leads to a guarantee on the property subscription at 560. That's why it's at 560, where the phone doesn't have the clearing like that. Because you can imagine you're driving down the highway with the phone, you're trying to clear that. It would take a tremendous amount of energy, and we do have a limited amount of energy. So we don't have unlimited amount of energy, let's put it that way. So that's why the phone is at 575. It's a higher, so kind of what's coming in is this higher energy. And it's sort of kind of washing away, you know, these effects that Clayton's mentioning, whether it's geopathic stress. And we had some special ones in Colorado. We had a property that was really difficult for us to get up to level. In fact, it's in the Boulder area. And it turned out that there was a mining effect. There was a mine that was at a distance, and there was something occurring that caused vibration inside the mine. It was like a compressor or blower, perhaps, and it was bouncing on the floor of the mine, and it was creating this disruptive energetic effect on the property. So once we sort of got there, understood what was happening, and it's part of this is through intuition and kinesiology testing and talking to the subscriber, and that we were able to take care of that, and it didn't affect the property negatively anymore. So those are all part of the home subscription. So one of the things we recommend people do is if they do a free trial on the home, it will clear that negative history that Clayton mentioned.
And that's done permanently.
Yeah, and things can, you know, new things can happen, of course, and the geopathic stress may continue, but at least that part would be cleared. Yeah.
All right. So even in a free trial that is done, that's really awesome. Thank you so much for that. Thank you both for this work that you do on the level for humanity. When we look at the future, then, as you guys are dedicated to this, do you see a good vision for the future? Can you both share what you see the future as? Or I don't know if there's a timeline, but are you eternally optimistic?
Well, I'd like to be eternally optimistic. I'm working on that. Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of service projects, Lauren. We have a service project tab on our website, and you know, years ago we were very concerned about bees and the declining bee population. So we created a program for bees to strengthen their immune system, and we put that on huge areas of the planet. And we
Thank
also,
you. The
yeah.
bees, thank you.
So we do projects like that. We give away over 90% of the energy that's emanating from the technology is done in service work. And sometimes it's been high as 99. Just when COVID first came out, there's a lot of service work we were doing because things were dropping so fast. We did a big upgrade on the machine, and we just started doing more service work because things were getting lower and lower. Now, you know, the world's coming back up and things are kind of restabilizing. But we do have something called a pay it forward. So if you become a subscriber for even a month, you can choose a PIF or pay it forward, where we give a service that is 500 on the Hawkins Map of Consciousness with no programs. So it doesn't take as much energy from the technology, and it is a loving influence. It's just like being in a loving environment, like say your loving grandmother's home or something like that. And we have, you know, tens of thousands of those on the world, and they will stay on as long as Jeff and I have the service. So if that's 20 or 30 years from now, our commitment is to keep those on. And even if you cancel your subscription, they stay on for as long as we have the business.
And that's good for schools and hospitals and places in our community. And yeah, thank you for that. Awesome. Okay. So, Jeffrey, your vision.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at the world. You know, people call it the FLFE bubble, and it's been especially useful for people in this last year. You know, as Clayton said, the level of consciousness dropped dramatically around the planet, and you know, the more and more people that join us in the service and in this journey together, you know, that effect on that property radiates, as we said, and the effect on the individual sort of supports the entire planet, or you could say all of creation, really, to rise. So I'm not saying that, we're the only way to increase the level, but to me, it's whenever I see something, and Clayton and I work together, whenever we see something that needs help, we do what we can to help it. And that's sort of our view, and I'll speak of my own personal view, is I'm looking at the positive, move forward. I'm not dwelling on, what's wrong, or the many rabbit holes that surround us of things that are occurring that may not be, we feel aren't positive. It's like, let's focus on the positive things and create our own environment. And to me, that will support all of us to rise. And I see a positive future, because there's many things happening. There's many new technologies like ours starting to show up to support us with this, increased EMFs, and with, some of the chaos in the world, to support us to grow and evolve as humans and make a difference on the planet.
And what a difference you are making, both of you. Thank you so much. FLFE, Focused Life Force Energy, creating fields of higher consciousness in our homes, around our person. That does radiate out to the world. So thank you both for sharing this. And it's one vibration at a time. It really is feng shui. It is like feng shui, if you will. And it's technology, and it's a beautiful blend of spirituality and technology. That to me is so cool. Thank you both. One last question as we go. How would people test their environment to see what quality is it at?
Well, we test all properties that they're at the slider level, over the previous week, 98% of the time or more. So we know that's the case, but I would say that we are all sensitive. We can feel in our bodies, when we're walking down the street and something doesn't feel good, we're sensitive. I think we're built to know. And so many people, when they try the service and they turn it up or down or on or off, just how they feel in their body. I mean, we can really, like, as you said, there's sort of a clearness and a tingling feeling that can happen. And, if you walk, we've experienced walking into a graveyard or an old prison or a place like that, where it feels heavy and dark and low energy, versus a cathedral or a place where people pray, has a different feeling. So I would say it's check your body. How does your body feel?
Yes.
We always encourage people to trust themselves, Lauren, to be your own consciousness researcher. And our intent is to help, and encouraging people to trust themselves is, I think, a great way to help. So many of us are taught to doubt our own truth, and we're more interested in people being free and trusting themselves than we are in them believing us.
That is beautiful. Thank you both so much. This is the mission that we are all on, this raising of consciousness for humanity. It's a sovereign interconnection, connection to the higher self, connection to our sensitivity. And you guys are certainly helping all of humanity do this. We thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Lauren.
The link for the free trial is here on this webpage, and we hope you try it and test it out.